thing for us. They didn't give us nothing. They didn't try to help us get it. The Red Cross came in and built some little shanties. Built one for my mother, built one for my grandmother.
When blacks tried to rebuild their business community, the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce tried everything within its power to stop them. Blacks were refused financial assistance, and all donations from outsiders were turned down. In addition, a fire ordinance was passed which prevented many blacks from rebuilding their homes. Later, Walter White of the NAACP reported that the ordinance was passed to allow a group of white businessmen who had been trying to buy the Greenwood land for years to purchase it at a cheap price and turn it into an industrial complex. During that winter, more than 1,000 blacks were forced to live in tents. Against these tremendous odds, however, blacks rebuilt Greenwood.
The real challenge, or the real issue, among many others, with the 1921 race riot, Booker T. Washington declared the black community of Tulsa as the Black Wall Street of America. It was a wealthy city. And what happened is that the riot halted the wealth, the accumulation of wealth. Blacks were cut off from loans. The city made a commitment, a restitution, reparation, if you will, to the dying. And then they reneged on it and went into developed an attempt to steal the land. That rather than reparations, what they in fact did is pass a city ordinance after the riot that said blacks could not rebuild on property that had been burned, which would have been largely the black community. And what they said in the official documents is what we'll do is move the blacks, niggers, further north, and when we sell their property, we'll give them the difference in what the properties were, and that will be their restitution. Of the more than $4 million in claims that were placed before the City Commission of Tulsa at the time, all $4 million were turned down. Yet, McGee, there were two pawn shops, white pawn shops that were broken in by the looters. They petitioned the City Commission for ammunition and guns that were lost during the 1921 race riot, something a total of some $5,000. The City Commission paid those claims. So in my view, by paying those claims, it justified and it, in fact, endorsed reparations for all those who lost something. There were whites who lost their lives. There were white property owners in that community who lost property. Matter of fact, much of the historical information on the race riot came from a case in the state Supreme Court. Renfro, a white man, sued to force the insurance companies to pay him for his property that was lost in a riot. See, even blacks and whites who had insurance were not paid by the insurance companies because they had a riot restriction in the insurance clause. And when this was determined a riot by the courts, all those insurance claims were denied. The most celebrated case on this issue was a white man. So I wish I'd get away from the word reparations in this instance, restitution, compensation, I don't care. But whites want to see this as a black issue. Tulsa, as I said, had integrated warfare where black lives were lost and white property also was equally lost. So I think there are whites who got money coming.
Well, it wouldn't make all that right, but after all, it would be an idea of giving some kind of restitution for losing so much.
Someone came into your home and set it fire and burned up everything that you owned, including your home, everything around you. And we didn't get a penny's insurance, even though we had our property insured. How did you feel about reparations? Something. I never thought of it, how much somebody should pay for what they put my family through.
My personal viewpoint, I'd like to see every survivor, all 64, get some monetary reparation. I'd also like to see some kind of scholarship fund set up for descendants of survivors. We know they were summarily buried and that it was not done properly. There's no closure. There are people, I talk to survivors to this day, who weep because they don't know where their relatives are. It's getting over it and moving on.
A white mob destroyed the black community, an evil of which neither community has survived. I'm hoping that as we begin to discuss a reconciliation monument, as we wade through the issues of reparation, it will pull our community together. There was a poll taken that said 57% of Oklahomans were against reparation. Well, for me, that was a good sign. And being an elected official, if I entered the race as an unknown, as many of the people did, are really not aware of the ride, and I had 43% of the vote without information, I would think I had a hearty chance. I believe if there is a compelling report of the events of the Tulsa race ride, and really it wasn't a race ride, it was interracial warfare. If there's a compelling story told, then I think the whole notion of reparations, the whole discussion may change. It was interesting in a vote on Wednesday of last week, the issue of reparation did come into vote. It survived the bill by one vote. So the discussion, I would say, is let this discussion begin, let the discussion continue. When we look at Tulsa, it is unique in terms of race riots. Now, please know that Tulsa was not the only race riot. It happened to be the largest one and had more deaths, an estimated 300 people to die. From 1906 in Atlanta to the 40s in Detroit, there were more than 50 riots. And I see something happening through this experience in Tulsa. I just left Illinois, where Representative Young and Senator Tanner of the Illinois General Assembly are fashioning a bill for reparations, or at least a study of the 4 riots that they had in Illinois. Illinois is has the second number of race riots, second only to Texas in the number of race riots that it had. In terms of the reparation movement, I have talked to Randall Robinson, and I have talked to INCASA, the grassroots movement supporting Representative John Conya's bill. And I think there's general agreement that this whole study of the Tulsa race riot is healthy. It's not only healthy for those communities, it is healthy for the nation. I think, I have to believe that if this nation sees the savagery that is perpetuated on black folks over the years, that it may respond pretty much as they did when they turned the dogs and fire hoses on Birmingham. So I certainly encourage these studies on the race riots in some of the 40 cities. I've been traveling all over the country speaking to that issue.